Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Amanda Hooper, and I'm the Deputy Director of Outreach at the National Women's Law Center. Before we get started, I just want to give you a few housekeeping notes. During the webinar, all lines will be on mute. We will be taking questions after the speakers have concluded their presentations, but you can submit a question at any time during the webinar by typing it into your webinar toolbar and hitting send. Please also note that this webinar is being recorded and you will receive a link to the recording as well as to the PowerPoint slides within the next couple days. Today we'll hear presentations from Roxy Keynes, who is the Earned Income Tax Credit Campaign Director at the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. We'll also hear from Amelia Bell, who is a fellow at the National Women's Law Center, and then I will talk about some ways that your organization can, some resources that the Law Center has for your organization to do tax credits outreach. So before we get started, we have just a couple poll questions so that we can learn more about you and who is joining us on the webinar. So very shortly you will see popping up on your screen the first poll question, which is what sort of organization do you work for? So there are a few different options: advocacy, direct service, government, tax preparation, or other. So if you could just pick something that is the closest to what fits the kind of work that you do. I'm just going to give it a little bit more time so that people can weigh in, and then we'll report back shortly. Okay, so more than 80% of people have responded, so I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. Thank you all for responding. Looks like 20% are at an advocacy organization, 39% at a direct service organization or other nonprofit, 20% with government, 7% tax preparation, and 14% other. And then the other question we're going to ask at this point is, how long have you been involved in tax credits outreach work? So there are just a few spans of years there. If you could just go ahead and respond and let us know how long you've been working in this field. Again, I'm going to give it just a little bit more time for people to weigh in. And at this point, I'm going to close the poll. Thank you all for responding. Looks like by far most people have been doing this work between 1 and 5 years. That's 62% of those of you who responded. 17% 5 to 10 years, 10% 10 to 15, 5% 15 to 20 years, and 7% 20 years or more. So at this point, I'm going to turn the floor over to Amelia Bell from the National Women's Law Center. Amelia, take it away.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Amanda. So I'm just going to start with a quick run-through of the federal tax credits that are available to working families for tax year 2015. First, the federal earned income tax credit, which can be worth up to $6,242 for this tax year for some low-income families. The federal child tax credit, which can be worth up to $1,000 per child, and for tax year 2015 is refundable for very low-income families. And then also the federal child and dependent care tax credit, which can be worth up to $2,100, but is unfortunately not refundable. And then there's also the federal premium tax credit, which can help individuals pay for health insurance in the new health insurance marketplaces created through the Affordable Care Act. Next slide. In addition to the federal tax credits, there are many states that also offer similar additional tax benefits to working families. For this tax year, 25 states and the District of Columbia will offer earned income tax credits. California, for the first time this year, is offering a state earned income tax credit. 26 states offer child care tax credits to help cover some of the costs of child and dependent care. And then 3 states offer child tax credits in addition to what a family would receive through the federal child tax credit. Next slide. However, families need to file their taxes to claim these credits to get the benefits, which is where you all come in. An estimated 20 to 25% of eligible individuals and families fail to claim the earned income tax credit every year. And that correlates to billions of dollars in tax credits that can go unclaimed. So these families who can greatly benefit from the tax credits and the money that goes along with them aren't getting those much needed benefits. So we want to help you make sure that the families in your area aren't among those 20 to 25% of eligible individuals who aren't claiming the tax credits they deserve. And so in the next few slides, I'm going to talk about some strategies on how to make sure that families are able to claiming the benefits that they're eligible for. Next slide. So I'm going to cover 5 steps on how to help families learn about these valuable federal and state tax credits. Next slide. I'm going to talk about the first few of these for you, and then I'm going to hand it over to Roxy, and she's going to talk a little bit more about the last few. So the 5 easy steps are: 1, get the facts about tax credits, then get the facts about free tax preparation services that families in your area can be taking advantage of, and then partner up to expand your reach to families in your area and community, and then spread the word to families with children to make sure that they know that these tax credits exist and the benefits they can receive from them, and then gather success stories. Next slide. So first, I'm going to talk about getting some of the facts about tax credits. Both the National Women's Law Center and many other organizations have free materials about tax credits available now. So for example, we at the National Women's Law Center have a website that's written here, and the link you'll be able to click in the slides when we send them on after the presentation, where you can download free state-specific flyers and other materials. Those flyers are also, we have federal flyers and state flyers available in Spanish, as well as a few other languages for some of those flyers. And we also have an updated FAQ on the premium tax credit. And over the next few weeks, we'll be updating that page as well with different information for specific populations, for example, immigrants or survivors of domestic violence. And then a couple other great resources noted here that, again, when the slides are sent, you'll be able to have those clickable links. Next slide. And then the next bullet that we mentioned is about getting the facts about free tax preparation assistance. The IRS-sponsored VITA program offers free tax help to low and moderate income families who need help preparing their own tax returns. That income cutoff is generally about $50,000 for families to qualify for the VITA program. The IRS also coordinates with the AARP to offer tax help to people of low to middle income, especially those aged 60 and over, through a program called Tax Aid. And now I'm going to briefly turn it over to Amanda for one more poll question about your involvement in free tax preparation assistance.
Thank you. So we're going to go ahead and launch one more poll, which you'll see on your screen like the others, which is just to get a sense of if folks are involved in volunteer tax preparation. It's just a quick yes or no question. So I'll give you just a few more seconds to go ahead and weigh in on whether or not you're involved in volunteer tax prep. Okay, more than 80% of people have voted, so I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. It looks like 36% said yes and 64% said no. Okay, so I'm just going to give a little run through some of the benefits of volunteer tax preparation versus paid tax preparation services that some of you might also be familiar with. So why should a family choose one of these free tax prep
services over a paid service that might be more widely advertised. First, volunteer tax preparers are trained and certified by the IRS and have IRS support. And if a family or an individual has questions or follow-up, organizations that do free tax prep are available after the April 15th tax deadline. So if there's any questions, some paid tax prep don't offer services after that official deadline in April. Related to that, volunteer tax preparers can help prepare or amend tax returns from prior years, and free tax preparers don't charge exorbitant or unnecessary fees through refund anticipation loans and refund anticipation checks. So for low-income families where cost is an issue, volunteer tax preparers are a great resource. Additionally, sometimes free tax preparers can connect families with other services or resources. For example, many of these programs help connect families with resources to help them save, and for example, allowing them to take some of their tax refund check and deposit it directly into a savings account that they can help set up, or refer to somebody who can help set up a savings account to help families who may not have a little bit of an emergency fund or any long-term savings start to build one up. Next slide. Next slide. Oh, thank you. So to get some information about these free tax preparation services, starting in early January, you can call the IRS free hotline to locate a VITA site, which again is the sponsored program to help for volunteer tax preparers. And there's sites all across the country, and so you can call or visit this website to find a VITA site in your community. And then the AARP-sponsored tax aid program I mentioned earlier that specifically targets individuals, low-income individuals age 60 and over. There's also a toll-free number starting in January, as well as a website where you should be able to find a tax aid site in your community. So now I'm going to turn it over to Roxy, who's going to talk about partnering up to expand your reach.
Thanks, Amelia. So step 3 to help inform families about tax credits is to partner up to expand your reach. To maximize your outreach impact, partnerships are essential. You can work with community groups, including advocacy or service organizations, as well as local healthcare navigators and organizations involved in healthcare outreach. Businesses can also play an important role in that they can inform employees as well as customers, depending on the type of business, about the tax credits and free tax help. State and local government agencies and officials provide services that some tax credit recipients may use. And EITC coalitions bring together a diverse group of institutions to assist with outreach. Coalitions are extremely significant and valuable for several reasons. So let's take a look at tax credit coalitions. Well, they help to connect groups to outreach already taking place. By connecting with a tax credit coalition, you can learn about tax credit outreach campaigns that are in existence. Tax credit coalitions help to organize free tax preparation services. They link workers to financial services and asset building programs, which can include links to bank accounts, to credit building services, financial coaching or financial counseling, or individual development account programs. Tax credit coalitions also help assess eligibility for other public benefits, such as SNAP. A few things to keep in mind about coalitions. Number 1, coalitions are grassroots. This means that they are organized by local community groups, and it's these groups that drive the focus and the work of the coalitions. Some government programs are involved as partners, but these EITC coalitions are not run by the government, and they are not designed to fulfill a specific government agenda. Diverse participation in EITC coalitions often includes the mayor or other public officials and local business leaders. So what exactly do coalitions do? Well, coalitions help develop strategy, themes, and materials for tax season outreach campaigns. They can help find partners to host volunteer income tax assistance sites, and this also includes mobile sites. They recruit volunteers, provide the training for volunteers, and help get campaign information out to workers. This is the primary focus of these coalitions. Some coalitions build in a more specific focus on that asset building piece as well. The greatest strength of an EITC coalition is the partners. So the value of having more partners in a coalition means that you can divide campaign tasks and take advantage of partners' special capabilities to avoid doing the work again. Why reinvent the wheel? Some partners in coalitions may also have experience reaching certain communities. So, for example, there may be some partners that have connections and ties to certain ethnic communities and businesses. And this could be really critical to get tax credit information to people who may not otherwise receive it. You also may have some partners that have special connections and experience working with families around people with disabilities or working with family daycare providers. So looking at the diversity and the strengths of partners makes the work of a coalition more effective and efficient. In addition to community, government, business, and healthcare groups, coalitions partner with the IRS. IRS staff are a partner. They do not run coalitions, and they do not run VITA sites. They help provide assistance for VITA sites to get started and help ensure the quality of the preparation. They can be a resource for VITA sites to get training materials and free tax software. And the IRS is a partner in helping to address any troubleshooting that's needed during the filing season. So they are a resource and not the organizer. So now that you know a little bit more about coalitions, are you ready to partner with your local coalition? Well, if you don't know if there's a coalition in your community, there are two ways that you can find out. One is to contact the center's Get It Back campaign, and you can email us at the email address on your screen or visit our website. The second way is to reach out to your IRS territory manager. If you don't know who your IRS territory manager is, you can find that information on our website. In addition to connecting you to a coalition, the Center's Get It Back campaign provides many resources that can help support tax credits outreach partnerships. Right now, you can see screenshots on your screen of some of the sample outreach materials, the new materials that we'll be providing through our campaign. So we provide downloadable outreach materials, including flyers, posters, and VITA site checklists. We also have press releases and infographics. And as part of our new campaign, we're launching a new website that will be releasing sample Facebook and blog posts that you can share with your network. We'll be conducting virtual trainings for you to learn more about strengthening the use of these resources and collaborating with partners in coalitions. And we provide outreach strategies to engage specific partners in becoming a part of a coalition or reaching out to their network. So this includes reaching out to businesses, schools, public benefit agencies, as well as certain communities such as grandparents raising grandchildren or people with disabilities. We'll be releasing talking points and outreach guides to engage different community partners as well. So to stay informed about when these new materials are available, you're encouraged to join the Get It Back campaign and sign up for our email list by going to our website, eitcoutreach.org. And of course, if you have any questions, you can contact us. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Roxy. So at this point, I am just going to go over some of the additional resources that the National Women's Law Center has for organizations that also want to engage in tax credit outreach work. So we're excited to roll out our updated tax credits outreach toolkit, and you can find it at the address listed on your screen, which is nwlc.org/loweryourtaxes. There are some resources that are up already, and we'll be updating that page, as Amelia said, over the next few weeks with additional resources, so please check back and stay tuned. And the purpose of the toolkit is to make tax credits outreach as easy as possible. So over the next few slides, I'll just walk you through some of the pieces of the toolkit and the corresponding effective outreach strategies that you can use or adapt for your organization and the population that you work with. So the idea is to spread the word to the communities that your organization is working with. So you've already gotten the facts and the best ways to partner to expand your reach. Here are some of the resources and action steps you can take. So we know that these credits are valuable, but we also know that billions of dollars are going unclaimed. So it's up to us to get the word out and bridge the gap. So on the slides, you'll see some of the most effective strategies that we've used, and I'll go more in depth on each one of these. Flyers, newsletter articles, websites and social media, phone, as well as traditional media and press. So one easy way to spread the word is with flyers. The Law Center has flyers that are available on our tax credits outreach page, as well as eitcoutreach.org. Flyers are a low-cost, low-effort way to get the word out. If you have you know, an in-person office where people may be coming, you can hang them in your office. You can print and distribute them at meetings. You know, for folks who work in child care centers or similar things like that, you can send copies of it home with the children. So we have state-specific flyers available for each state, as well as federal flyers. And as Amelia mentioned, we have them in additional languages for some of the states. Okay. So next are newsletter articles. I know lots of organizations have, you know, monthly newsletters or weekly newsletters. That's a great way to reach the population that you are working with. So you can put a newsletter article in about tax credits. And we have samples of this in our toolkit, templates that you can adapt. And you can also share it with partner organizations so that you can spread the word even farther. At the Law Center, we are happy to tailor, you know, to help tailor either the flyers that I talked about, or if you want to run language by somebody, or if you need help getting started, please feel free to reach out to us, and we're happy to assist in whatever way is helpful. Your website and social media. So we know that lots of people are going online for their information, both on their computers and also on their phones, and that people are connecting to information through social media. So we encourage organizations to put the information on your website. There are some of those links up on your screen, as well as to engage on, you know, your Facebook channel or if you're on Twitter, to put that out there, since that is how a lot of people are finding out and are connecting to news and to resources. So in the toolkit, we have some updated sample materials for social media, so please feel free to use and adapt those. You can also like and follow the Law Center as well as the Center on Budget, and we will we'll continue to post resources throughout the tax season as well that are easily shareable. And again, if people want to co-brand or tailor, please just feel free to reach out to us. So next is ways that you can provide information over the phone, which is a little more old-fashioned, but when the idea is to get the message out to as many people as possible, it's great to think about where is the population that you're working with getting their information. So depending on who you're working with, their age, their location, their access to technology, a phone message may be the most effective way to engage with them. So if you have a receptionist who answers phones, you can equip that person with information about tax credits, either directing it to the website or letting them know about information that is available in your office. If you have a pre-recorded voicemail message that is on after hours or during the day, you can also mention resources there. And this was an idea actually that we got back from someone who joined a webinar a couple years ago, is that if your community has a phone information service, you can also see if they are available or willing to include that tax information in your community. Unless you're a tax professional, this is just a caveat, you shouldn't be giving specific advice, but just referring people to the resources where they can learn more and get the professional advice. Okay, and then the media. So there are a few different ways to work with the media. You can do a press release. You can do letter to the editor. Some communities have done public service announcements in their communities where over the radio or elsewhere in the community that they're making announcements that these tax credits are available and here's where you can go to learn more. And again, we have templates for some of these things available in our toolkit that you can look at more in depth once we send out the slides and the additional materials a few days after the webinar. And then finally, as you're going through, any success stories that you're able to capture are really helpful. They don't have to be long, involved stories, just simple ways that families are benefiting from tax credits is really, really helpful to capture and to be able to share. When we're talking to policymakers about why it's so important that we have these tax credits, it's really useful to have concrete examples of how these things are helping families. Are you getting a more reliable care, a more reliable car to get to work? Are you able to access different kinds of care that you weren't able to? To the extent that's possible, as you're interacting with folks, or you can post a Share Your Story link on your website. As you see, the Law Center has one where people can just quickly share their stories about how tax credits have been helpful for them. And then finally, you can become a NWLC community partner. We send monthly emails that have additional resources, webinars and trainings, different sort of timely things to be aware of as the tax season goes on. So we have customized resources, we do technical assistance on issues, and if you join, we can also talk about tailoring things that would be helpful specifically for your organization and the population that you work with. So there's a sign-up link on the screen, and again, that will be available when we circulate the slides after this webinar. I went backwards instead of forwards. Okay, so here are some additional places where you can go and find resources and materials after this webinar. So that concludes the presentations for today. I'd like to thank Amelia and Roxy very much for the information that you've shared with us. At this time, we do have some space for questions. If people have questions for any of our presenters, please just enter that into your webinar toolbar, and we will try to address them. So it looks like we have a question for Roxy. Individual organizations may be thinking that there are large coalitions that already have tax credits outreach covered in their communities. Why should organizations think about getting involved?
Well, organizations should think about getting involved in tax credit outreach, even if there is a coalition that's active in their area, because we know that everyone who's eligible for the tax credits are not claiming them. Earlier, Amelia shared that 20 to 25% of people who are eligible for the earned income tax credit do not claim it. So even if there's a lot of activity, there's room and there's a need for further involvement in outreach. Also, as I mentioned, different organizations bring different strengths to the table. So your particular group may have expertise and experience working with a particular community, or maybe there's a certain skill or approach that you could help share that would strengthen the overall work and impact of the larger outreach efforts.
Great, thanks, Roxy. There's a question about, are there materials in Haitian Creole or Spanish that could be distributed to folks who come to citizenship clinics during the tax season? I know that the Law Center has some resources in Spanish. Amelia, do you want to talk a little bit more about those?
Absolutely. We have some materials in Spanish. We should have all of the state tax credit flyers available in Spanish shortly if they are not already up on the website. And then we also have some additional languages. I'm not sure, I don't think we have French Creole though. I know some states we've had in the past Vietnamese and Mandarin. But definitely for all states there will be Spanish and English, and that's a great idea to distribute them to people seeking immigration services.
This is Roxy. The Center's Get It Back campaign provides a flyer that presents information on the earned income tax credit, child tax credit, and a little bit about free tax preparation and what to bring to a VITA site. We have that available in 23 languages, including Haitian Creole, and the new materials will be available at the end of this week.
Wonderful. Thank you both for that. There's a question about if an organization has limited capacity, basically how can they maximize their effort and their limited resources? If there's only one thing that they could do to share tax credits information, what would that thing be? I would say think about what are the ways that you usually interact with the population that you serve and tailor what you're doing towards that. So if you know that you have a really strong social media following and that's how you get information out, then focus on engaging on social media. If you know that you have thousands or hundreds of people on your newsletter list, then really focus on that. So I would just say try to adapt whatever your strategy is to to the best way to get that information out. I don't know if Roxy or Amelia, if you have anything to add to that.
I agree. I would say the number one most important thing is to disseminate information. And if an organization has limited resources, looking at the most consistent way that they do communicate with their clients, and then maximizing that opportunity, looking at ways to pair the dissemination. If you do mailings, if you can include a flyer with mailing information on something else related to the organization, that way you don't have to pay postage twice.
Wonderful. There's a question about when organizations should begin distributing materials and how long should organizations do so. Roxy, do you want to answer that?
Sure. So ideally, it would be great to start disseminating information in mid-December. This is to help get a jump start on some of the messages that come out from commercial tax preparers saying that they can do tax returns without the year-end tax documents, without the W-2. And so that would be ideal. If that time frame is not realistic, we've heard that a lot of organizations are involved in other year-end priorities, and so January is a great time to get started. January through at least February is the critical time for information dissemination. There are some filers that can still be reached come March and the beginning of April. However, January through February is the most critical time. And again, if this is an organization with limited capacity, focusing your outreach efforts in that early part of the tax season, even pre-tax season, would have the most impact.
Great, thanks, Roxy. There's a question about tax credits and survivors of domestic violence. Amelia, I think you maybe mentioned that in your presentation, although we didn't go specifically into that information during this webinar. In the past, we have done targeted either webinars or resources for smaller populations, like groups dealing with domestic violence. Amelia, is there anything that you want to add to resources for DV survivors?
Yeah, thanks. We are working, just waiting on the IRS to update us a few numbers, and then we will have an updated checklist of tax issues for domestic violence survivors that can be useful for those working to help DV survivors prepare their taxes. This checklist will include what your client needs to file a federal tax return, what filing status she should use, including considerations if she's still married to the abuser, what tax credits she may be eligible for, information on how to help her pay for health insurance with a premium tax credit, and then additional places to send her if you are not able to give tax advice or are not a tax preparer. Again, more of the links we talked about to VITA programs or tax aid programs, or the free file, free online tax preparation software. And then also how to advise her to help her if she's worried about getting her refund and not being able to send it to a certain address, if she's in a shelter, for example, or if she doesn't have a bank account, those sorts of issues that are unique to domestic violence survivors. And then also ways for services that can help her if she's unable to pay a tax bill that she owes, or any of the fees associated. And so that should be up in early January. It's a pretty comprehensive document, so hopefully that's helpful. And I'm not sure if we're planning on we're still talking to some partner organizations about potential webinars for the spring on the issues specific to certain populations, but we are planning to do one on tax issues specific to immigrants. and we'll send out information on that when we have a date set.
Great, thank you very much. And then Amelia or Roxy, there is a question about whether people have to have income from a job to receive these tax credits, and some people are on SSD.
Sure. So to claim the earned income tax credit and the child tax credit, one must have earned income from work. If they only are receiving SSD and they don't have any other source of income, even if that benefit is within the income guidelines, unfortunately, they would not be eligible to claim the credits. If they receive SSD and have income from another source, from a job, then they may be eligible to claim the credits.
Thank you. Okay, so Amelia or Roxy, are there any closing thoughts or additional things that you wanted to add before we close out?
Not from me.
I want to thank everyone again for joining and really commend you for your interest in getting involved in tax credit outreach activities or continuing your work for those of you that have been doing this for many years. And I want to encourage you to use all of the resources that we've shared. And of course, if you have questions, you can contact either of our organizations and we'll be more than happy to assist you.
Thanks very much. So thank you again to our presenters and to everyone who joined us today. When you exit the webinar, you'll get a prompt to just take a quick survey and give us feedback on how useful and any comments that you might have. And thank you all for joining. You'll receive the link to the recording and webinar slides just within the few next days. Thanks very much, everyone. This concludes today's webinar.